The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Do you want people to get the MMR vaccine?
Yeah, I said that already.
Okay, so
I know you're flustered now, and it is.
I'm not frustrated at all.
Because
I am
people
frustrated.
have not been honest.
The reason I'm frustrated is because you are the HHS secretary, and you are talking about things that lead to vaccine hesitancy in this country, and it is something that causes problems for people when there is not anything.
Let me ask you something. Do you see your job as ending vaccine hesitancy, or do you see your job as telling the truth to the American people?
I see my job as telling the truth, and the truth is that there is study after study after study. It's one of the most studied things out there in science.
You're repeating
and
it like a parrot. You're repeating it like a parrot. I've actually read the science. Let's come back here and debate the science.
I'm not debating this with you.
Of course you won't.
No, because I'm not debating.
All you know how to do is repeat things that people told you and say, trust the experts. That's what you did during COVID. Now we know that Anthony Fauci, who was the expert, was lying about everything, about masks, about social distancing, about natural immunity, about the transmission from the vaccine, about the source of COVID. He was lying, and you were punishing people for not trusting the experts. And now you're rolling out the experts again to talk about something that you have no personal knowledge of.
Okay, well, guess what? That is my job, to talk to people.
Your job is to tell the truth to the American public.
Yes, and my job is to get as much information as I can.
And to maintain a posture of fear, skepticism toward government authority.
In COVID and still, with regard to these vaccines, is getting the best information, the best science that we can, and putting it out there. And, sir, what you are doing is causing information to be out there that is not accurate.
Who was lying to you?
Ooh, it's Monday the 3rd of August, 2026. We're live here at CHD TV. We have an amazing show for you today. I'm going to be bringing on Brian Hooker in just a second. Then we're going to go to Isabella Yon to talk about, do you really want your children eating school food? And she's going to be talking about how, what you can do about that. Then Marcie Fallek is on to talk about poor Ozempic. Yes, Ozempic for cats and dogs is coming. So we're going to be talking about that. But first up, bringing on now Brian Hooker, our Chief Scientific Officer for Children's Health Defense. Good morning, Brian. Oops, can't hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did that. But, you think that maybe I've done this for a while and I wouldn't do that. But good morning. So good to see you. So proud of Secretary Kennedy. Oh, my goodness.
It's like he's had the leash taken off him and he's ready to just go. I will say on behalf of every mother whose child has been injured or killed by the MMR, I do not like that he said that. He looked a bit flustered at that moment. I know, as well as you know, that he does not think the MMR is a safe and effective vaccine. I know that.
He knows that. And things that he said in the past regarding the measles vaccine are accurate. The measles vaccine has about a 93% efficacy when you first get it to prevent the measles. So when he says that, if you don't want the measles, get the MMR vaccine, that's true. But the flip side of the story, which, I'm loath to say it doesn't get out there enough, is the damage, the horrible damage that a triple valent, 3 live viruses in one vaccine, never been safety tested at all in its current form. The flip side of the story needs to be told every time.
But Brian, I just want to say one thing, and then we're going to move on from the MMR. How many people have died of measles, truly died of measles in America, and how many people have died from the MMR or been catastrophically brain injured like my son from the MMR? How many?
I would say 0. in the last 20 years. Every case where they have described somebody dying from the measles, I've gone back and looked at the forensics, and it's not a measles death, it's something else. You know, one of the individuals just happened to test positive for PCR for the measles, RT-PCR for the measles, and they called it a positive measles death. She tested positive in an autopsy. She had no spots. And the second thing is that the MMR deaths over the past 20 years, just the VAERS reports alone have over 100 deaths. And we know that that's about 1% reporting. Okay, so you do the math. 1% reporting, that would be 10,000 deaths from the MMR vaccine versus 0 deaths from the measles.
Yeah. Okay. So people listening, your child is more likely to die from the MMR vaccine or be injured, brain injured for life from the MMR vaccine than dying from measles. So please keep that. This is the truth. This is the people telling you that vaccinated, this is what happened to them. Please listen to the people rather than the politicians or anybody else. Right. Let's move. So here's the problem. So Bobby has done this interview over the weekend and it's gone viral. And now, of course, he's being attacked. So within hours, in comes Forbes and various other people attacking him. So let's bring up this Forbes article here. This is a doctor. Of course, a doctor means that it's right. Fact checked Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s CNN interview. He incorrectly stated the US has the highest COVID death rate. Kennedy also questioned the benefits of COVID-19 vaccines for children. He denied that the vaccine also, on and on it goes. Can you talk about this, please?
Okay, well, the death rate in the United States, if you look at how much we spend per capita for individuals in the United States, it is the worst. It's the worst value. More people died from COVID in the United States, paying, about double our nearest nation in terms of healthcare costs. It was in the top 10 of the most developed nations. And it's beside the point. It's pathetic that our healthcare system, we're supposed to be the best in the world. And this practicing physician is splitting hairs that, our mortality rate is not as high as, someplace like Bulgaria. So that it does not hold water. The doctor who wrote that Forbes article should be ashamed of themselves for looking at the actual COVID death rates, looking at the countries that did so much better than the United States. Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, all did better than the United States and did not have draconian lockdown protocols.
And Brian, they're still going on about the COVID-19 shot for children being safe. How many deaths? I mean, I don't know that you know how many deaths, but we know there are children that died following the COVID-19 shots.
There are children who died following the COVID-19 shot, and the incidence of myocarditis, I've seen in adolescent boys, this would be between the ages 12 and 17 years, is almost 1 to 2 in 100. 1 to 2 in 100. That number is from Peter McCullough. The official numbers are actually 2 in 1,000, which is completely unacceptable. Myocarditis changes people's lives. It changes their livelihoods, if it doesn't kill them. I mean, these are deadly things that the COVID shot causes. And we'll never have an accurate assessment because we have people that are supposed to be counting this information at the CDC who are lying through their teeth about how deadly the COVID shot is.
Now, going back to that Dana O'Donnell with a Bash interview, I mean, I've watched the whole of that. It was just a tiny clip of it. And she's really was in trouble because, as Bobby rightly pointed out, she's just a parrot. She's parroting what Big Pharma is telling her to say. And this is going to get worse with the vaccines and the autism thing because we're getting closer and closer to the truth, Secretary Kennedy's truth coming out about what causes autism. We know Tylenol is a problem.
Right.
But ultimately, we all know, all the parents know, you in the science department knows, Secretary Kennedy knows, vaccines play a major part in the huge rise of autism, no doubt.
Exactly. Vaccines play a huge part. Officially, they've never studied anything but the MMR vaccine and thimerosal vaccines. And most of those studies, she said, oh, well, there's at least 4 studies. They're 40 fraudulent studies. I'm sorry. If you have if you have a turd of a study and you take it and you multiply it by 40, then you just have a big pile of crap. So we have 40 crap studies that are funded by the pharmaceutical industry with myriad entanglements with institutional public health, with the pharmaceutical industry. But the independent studies all show that children that participate in the vaccination schedule are anywhere from 70% to 5 times to 12 times more likely to get an autism diagnosis.
And you can't ignore the parents who for years have been saying, look, we vaccinated and this is what happened. My child regressed into autism.
Exactly. The parents, the case studies that come out of the parents, Polly, my hat's off to you because you spent time on the bus doing this when even, with the Vax tour, not paid to do this. You just went out on the bus and you got so many stories. You take all of those stories. That is science. That is science. You take all of those data points. It screams out loudly. There is something here. Vaccines do cause autism. Vaccines are related to autism.
And so just to summarize this up, so people truly understand, when these hosts come on CNN or whatever the big pharma paid media outlets are, and they're talking about these 40 studies or however many they want to spout out, they are funded by big pharma. So that's a massive conflict of interest. When it comes to independent studies like the ones you've done and Paul Thomas done, various others done, that is an independent study not sponsored by big pharma, and those are retracted.
And those are retracted. So many of them that were on PubMed that are, essentially the National Library of Medicine's official approved journals that can appear on their website, they're retracted. And it's open season for those particular papers. So you look at this. My own paper, this is the last man standing. It's the last paper that shows a Vax Unvax study with untoward consequences for vaccinating. I didn't even touch autism in this paper. It was a paper that I wrote with Neil Miller, and it was published back in May of 2020. The paper is 6 years old. It has already been downloaded from the website almost 300,000 times. It's obviously a very, very popular paper. It showed that developmental delays were 2 times more likely in the vaccinated group, asthma 4.5 times more likely, and ear infections 2.2 times more likely. That's all it states. But the journal has an expression of concern. There have been these anonymous complaints that have been raised about the paper. The journal is not forthcoming on what the complaints actually are. I have asked 3 separate occasions, and now Secretary Kennedy has joined in and said, what the heck is going on? What is going on in this particular publication? He wrote a similar letter when Neil Miller's paper on SIDS was retracted from toxicology reports. We need to know, what is it about this paper that makes it retraction worthy? And the journal is for all intents and purposes silent.
So that tweet shows that Bobby knows, and he's Secretary Kennedy knows, and he's
Right.
standing firmly by you in a way.
He is standing firmly by the science. And, I think that knowing Secretary Kennedy, he would do it regardless of who it was. I mean, this is, in effect, we had a paper by Anthony Mawson that appeared on PubMed, was taken down the next day. We had a paper by Paul Thomas and James Lyons Weiler that was subsequently retracted. It was published in 2020, retracted in 2021. And then we have this paper. It is the last man standing on PubMed.
And just finally, I want to tell people about what I personally think is the most important book ever written, which is Vax Unvax, Let the Science Speak. Brian, why should every young parent, a person, read this book, especially if they're thinking of having children?
This is where you'll get the truth about vaccine adverse events. This is where you'll get the truth about the frequency of disease in vaccinated versus unvaccinated individuals. It doesn't laud the miracle of vaccination. I don't talk about how immunity is given. Secretary Kennedy, we were looking purely for Vax Unvax studies and what the overall health outcomes are. This is the truth of over 100 studies we found directly in the National Library of Medicine on PubMed. 90% of them are PubMed studies. And you need to get this book if you're going to be making any vaccination decisions for you, for your family, for your new children, for your grandchildren, for your nieces and nephews. This is where you can get this information.
That's correct. And Brian, thank you so much for being on this morning. And just to say, as these articles attack Secretary Kennedy, the science team will be fact-checking Big Pharma, mainstream media. So we are on this and on top of it, and that will be happening as we go forward.
Thank you so much, Polly. It's great to be with you.
Always with you as well. Thank you, Brian Hooker. All right, everybody. Now we are going to go to our Back to School series, and we are going to be bringing on Isabella Young from Mothers to Be to talk about food at school. Do you want your child eating the school food? Good morning, Isabella.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, I mean, back in my day when everyone was at school, it was a different situation altogether. But in this day and age, with the seed oils and all the other ghastly things that are in school foods, how dangerous is it that children are eating school food?
Yeah, I will start by saying I didn't go to school in America. However, I did go and spend a day with an American friend in a US high school. And I honestly was so shocked when I saw what they were serving in the cafeteria. And the CDC actually found that 90% of the calories in school lunches across American schools come from processed foods. You're going to be finding pizza, hot dogs, white processed bread, crackers, chips. I mean, all of your refined carbohydrates. These are cheap. They are not high quality chips. They're not sourdough organic bread. They're going to be low in nutrients and then very high in refined seed oils, which of course we know cause inflammation, as well as things like sugar. And just junk food, really. There's probably some artificial food dyes in there also. And they're, of course, going to be very low in fiber and protein and all the things that we need to keep us healthy and also have a stable mood throughout the day. I think we're setting these kids up for failure by feeding them these things and then expecting them to sit in these classrooms all afternoon on their bottoms listening, when really, the food that they've just eaten is causing crazy blood sugar spikes and making them feel probably all over the place. It's really quite shocking.
And also, because I was talking about shocking, I was absolutely horrified when I went into our local HEB and picking up products that you thought were natural and healthy, because it says natural and healthy and all that kind of stuff on it. But it actually says bioengineered products are in this food. And you can guarantee that will be in the children's food because it seems to be everywhere now.
Absolutely, and I think there's a really sad standard across the States and really across the world of what healthy is. A lot of people are looking at calories and things like low fat, which is such a myth that stemmed ages ago from a faulty study done by Ansel Keys, demonizing the role of healthy fat. So everyone switched to these low fat, low calorie foods. And sadly, that kind of narrative is still very much in place across the US and the world. And we're seeing that in the kids' food. So really, I just say stay away altogether from anything that comes out of a packet. It's actually a lot cheaper and, of course, a lot healthier to make your food at home. And we'll go into that in a little bit. I do also want to touch about something really shocking that I found. Face value, of course, we're looking at these foods like pizza and we're knowing they're just not good for our bodies. But if you actually dive in a little bit deeper, it's really quite scary what these foods actually contain. The awesome Zen and her team at Mums Across America did some independent lab testing. They tested 43 school lunch samples from schools across 15 different states, and they were looking for things like pesticides and, of course, glyphosate, heavy metals, and even things like vet drugs and like antibiotics and things like that. And their testing actually reported that 93% of the samples contained glyphosate and 74% of them contained at least one other pesticide, and even worse, in my opinion, 100% of them contained detectable heavy metals. So lead, which of course there is no safe limit for lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury, all of these were found in school lunches across the state. So, the food alone, yes, it's processed. It's not good for your body. It's going to make you have this crazy blood sugar roller coaster. But also long term, this stuff can be really, really dangerous. So I do plead with other mamas, let's make our kids food and have them bring it in. It can still be fun, it can still be delicious, but just so much better for our kids and setting them up for such a better day at school.
Well, some parents say, well, I just don't have time. It sounds expensive. It's so much easier for me to just put them in the lunch system. But you have a system, don't you, for your children? Talk us through that and how to make a lunchbox.
I do, yeah, absolutely. And honestly, one of my big lunch rules is that it should be easy. You know, whether you homeschool or send your kids into school, we are busy. All of us mamas, it's busy being a mum. It's busy having kids. And so it doesn't have to be complicated and it doesn't have to be expensive. So really my rule of thumb when it comes to packing a lunchbox is whole foods is the primary thing. So avoiding food that's been processed or refined, you know, as Polly mentioned, even the quote unquote healthy alternatives that are packaged still may contain bioengineered ingredients or just chemicals and added stabilizers and gums and things like that. But another main rule I go for is balanced. So this is one of the major issues with the cafeteria lunches and one of the easiest things that we can switch. So many of these lunches are going to be carbohydrate heavy, but we want to aim for having a protein source, a fat source, and a fiber rich carbohydrate, and then some colorful fruit or vegetables. If you kind of work through those four things and make sure all of those are in a lunchbox, you can have a really healthy lunch option with whatever you have at home. So I really like the bento box style lunches. I find these the easiest to pack. They require the least amount of thought and effort as a busy mum. And you can really customize them easily to your kids' needs and preferences. You know, I have 3 children, 2 that are eating. I mean, my third's just started eating, but the other 2 are eating and they have very different preferences of what they like. And this way I can easily, you know, pick and choose what they like and will actually eat, but still follow that balanced rubric to make sure that they are having this stable energy throughout the day. So just some lunch ideas for you guys, you know, organic roasted turkey or chicken. I really like to roast like a whole organic chicken on a Sunday, and then I can use the chicken breast or even the legs if you know have an ability to heat things up, or just eat them cold. And then I can also use the bones for stock, and so that way, you know, it's a really affordable way to feed your family, pack these lunches, and also get the most out of the meat. So I compare that with maybe some raw cheese, a clementine, or an apple. I like to do some ferment, so like some fermented pickles or sauerkraut, and then some Hugh crackers are great, or you can make your own little sourdough crackers with discard, really super easy. I think another really affordable and overlooked protein source is tuna. Obviously, you do have to be careful of mercury levels, but if you're buying wild caught, and also the Safe Catch brand is really wonderful because they test for mercury levels. But tuna is extremely affordable and it goes a long way, really high source of protein, and you can pair it with some avocado mashed in there or some like avocado oil based mayonnaise for a fat option, and serve it again with some sourdough toast or some high quality homemade crackers, and then just pop a piece of fruit in there and you're good to go. I think another thing that we overlook for a lunch option, and especially in the winter months when it's cold outside, depending on where you live, but you can do leftovers. So I actually have a small little stainless steel thermos that my son will take. He just goes to a little church like co-op thing, but he can take that with some, you know, like organic noodles or like a noodle soup. So I'll do some bone broth and chicken in there with some like organic red lentil noodles or something. And that's a really warm, nourishing meal that he can look forward to amongst a cold day, and also really hits the spot for, again, truly nourishing his body and keeping that blood sugar nice and stable throughout the afternoon to help him with energy levels and mood levels and things like that.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now, let's talk for a second about the parent that says, that's great, but my child won't eat any of that because all my child eats is chicken nuggets, chips, and whatever, I don't know. Because we've all been there with picky eaters of some kind. And I know that you tell your, I know I've spoken to your son, who tells me there's chemicals in that food. So it's important to talk to your children about why they're eating this food rather than Jimmy next to you is eating Doritos and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a little bit controversial in the parenting space. Do you tell your kids? Some people say that they shouldn't create fear around food. And I'm not trying to instill fear, but I do think it's really important to educate our kids about why we eat this way. Why don't we eat the hot dog processed from the school cafeteria? Why does mummy, pack your own food and we bring it in? And I think education is key. Often, I mean, my child is 4 years old, but he still knows, we don't eat colorful neon candies and processed food. Why? Because it makes us feel hyper. It makes us feel crazy sometimes in our bodies. Long-term studies have linked it to more serious illness when we're older, and we want to try and be healthy and have energy to run in a sustainable way, and move our bodies. So I think it's amazing how you can speak to your kids even from a young age, and not fear them, but really tell them why. We are Christian, and so we believe that God made our bodies to honor him, and so by putting these chemicals and nasty food into our body, we're not honoring our bodies, in the long run, as we know these things can cause horrible illness down the road.
And what about drinks? So, you see children with these juice boxes and soda, and it's hard for a child to be
Sure.
watching another child eating all these, what they think are just glamorous foods. What do you do about drinks?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought it up because, juice boxes are really big, and sodas, and even like healthy, quote unquote, sodas and things like that are, all the rage right now. Honestly, of course, water is going to be the best choice for your child. You can put a pinch of sea salt in for an electrolyte, or you can buy like a really high quality electrolyte powder. Just make sure you're checking those ingredients. I'm happy to share, with anyone who would need recommendations. You can just email me. Another really great way to make water more fun is to infuse organic fruits in it. So I can make a big jug, say on a Sunday, and I can add like some strawberries and some fresh mint or cucumber or whatever we have on hand, and infuse a big jug of water on a Sunday, and drink it throughout the week, pouring it into their water bottles, and they feel like they're having a juice. And honestly, I think if you just don't give your kids these things, they don't really, crave the sodas, crave the juices, as they would if they drank it often. Again, educating your kids, talking to them about why water is so important, and what, a sugary soda would do to your body: spike your blood sugar, make you feel maybe a little crazy, might hurt your tummy. I mean, my kids are very aware, the sugar makes me feel sick. And so, yeah, just sticking with water or making it as fun as you can with some fresh fruits is a great option.
And what do you do when it's a child's birthday and they bring in, maybe this is old fashioned, maybe it's just in my day, but people used to bring in cupcakes and stuff like that. And then, I mean, like at the church local to us in the daycare center, they give out goldfish crackers to the children. Do you speak to the teachers and the assistants and tell them why it's important that your children don't get these foods?
Absolutely. And this is, parent preference. Some parents I know who do eat really healthy feel that it's maybe okay for their child to have a treat once in a while. Again, my children feel very strongly also about nutrition, so they are actually not going to want to eat the neon blue cupcake. But you can still have them be able to participate. Again, speak to your teacher at the beginning of the school year and just say, hi, I really would not like my child eating, food dyes, and processed sugars. So if someone has a birthday party, please let me know either ahead of time if someone is bringing in treats, or here's like a little baggie of snacks that you can have. And, for this, obviously I want them to last the school year, so I will buy some healthier processed snack options. So like some organic fruit strips are really great. You can even buy like organic cookies, grain-free cookies without the refined sugar. So they're still a fun treat for your child, but they're not, coming home with stained blue lips from neon-colored cupcakes.
And here's the sort of psychological thing behind it. We say, maybe, look, okay, it's Sunday, let's go for a treat. I mean, again, in my day, you were allowed to have a certain amount of money to go and buy candy on a Sunday because it was a treat. And that in your head makes you think, well, if I'm really good, I can eat more of that candy. So we have to also teach our children that treats are not blue dye.
Sure, because it's ultimately not a treat if it's harming your body. And I think, again, I bake with my children and they love the idea of let's all eat a treat together as a family and bake it together. So you can healthier treats to either send in with your child or enjoy at home. We don't want to create fear around food, but there's more nutrient dense, delicious options that can still feel fun and feel like a treat without having to eat these crazily processed. I mean, you look at a store-bought cupcake and actually take a look at that ingredients list. There's probably over 100 ingredients in it. Not just the blue dye, not just the sugar, but all sorts of stabilizers and honestly things you can't even pronounce. It's really scary when you actually read these labels and see what's in our kids' food.
And how much it affects the children's behavior when parents say, my child's been so badly behaved.
Yeah.
They're not putting it, the fact you've just given them some food that's making them go crazy.
Sure. Well, there are multiple studies about how, excess sugar can cause like a lower attention span in kids. And then food dyes, we know, have been linked to an increase in hyperactivity, and irritability is a big one, and inattentiveness. And then there's, the blood sugar regulation issue. And so a really easy way I like to think about this is like thinking about a campfire, right? So if you throw a handful of kindling on the fire, like little twigs and things, you're going to get this huge, exciting flame really quickly, but it burns out very fast. And before long, you're left with, a dying fire. And this is essentially what happens in our kids' bodies when we eat refined foods and sugar. They get this really quick burst of energy and feel amazing for, 5-10 minutes. And then their blood sugar is going to drop an hour later and they're going to be tired, irritable, hungry, struggling to focus, and just finding it really difficult. On the other side, if you're making a campfire and use a big heavy log, it doesn't create such a dramatic, like crazy fire, but it does burn slowly and steadily for a long period of time. And this is what, high quality food rich in protein and fats and fiber is going to do for your kids. Provide this steady release of energy, which is going to help them stay, more focused, learn better, regulate their emotions, all of these things that we desire for our kids. And this is why we, feed them the foods that we do.
And Isabella, could you tell everyone your qualifications to be able to talk about this?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner. I did that program, and then I went on to get my master's in clinical nutrition, where we did kind of a more functional route. That was a 3 to 4 year program. So yeah, lots of schooling, which just taught me some really great things, and then lots of just experience working with families, over the last 10 years. And real world experience is one of the best ways to learn, I think, also.
Yeah, and the fact that your brother has autism and you saw how. Yes. He recovered so well. Well, he's not recovered, but he's so much better now through his food.
Yeah, I mean, that was the main reason why I wanted to go and be a nutritionist, because, even in my teenage years, seeing how Billy drastically changed, in terms of brain function and just overall functioning from diet primarily alone, made me think, gosh, well, if that can, have such a profound difference for Billy, surely, it's going to help all of us, function and feel so much better. So, yeah.
And so Mothers to Be is where people follow you and your team, and you're on Instagram. It's where I follow you. Tell us where else you are.
Yeah, so we're on Instagram. We're actually on TikTok for all of you trendy people who use TikTok, at Mothers to Be. And we're also on Facebook. And then if you go to our website too, we have so much just free information out there for whatever season you're in, whether it's pregnancy, postpartum, preconception, and then of course this first years of life, where we, chat about baby's first foods. We actually just have a brand new guide out, released last week, about, what to feed your baby when they start solids. My youngest Clementine is just starting to eat her food, so you can follow along with us as we feed her all the meat stock and jellies and sardines and all the things that are so unconventional but so amazing. And we talk about why they're so amazing for baby's brain as they grow. So yeah, definitely check us out and reach out. We'd love to connect with you and help you along your journey.
And that's 2 ebooks you have as well.
Yes, we also have The Well-Nourished Mother, which is a cookbook designed specifically for postpartum women. But actually those recipes can be used, at any season, and are really great for your family. There's probably some good recipes in there also for, like I was mentioning, in the winter months, you can take in some stews and warm foods. So they are really focused on warming nutrient dense foods. So definitely check that out also.
Okay, well, Bella, thank you so much for being on this morning. And to our viewers, if you have any questions for Isabella on any of the things she's talked about, do write into us at CHDTV, chd.tv/contacts. We will pass those on to Isabella and she will maybe address those in the coming weeks. But thank you for being on this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, everybody, now we're going to go over to Marcie Fallek. I cannot wait for this interview. I'm so horrified by the fact that Ozempic is coming for cats and dogs. They've got to be kidding. Good morning, Marcie. What is going on?
Yeah, good morning. Well, I think that big pharma sees a big pool of potential victims in the veterinary world. First of all, I want to say that pharma is saying that the pet population globally is overweight or obese 61%. And to me, that is not true. I've been a veterinarian for 40 years now. And what I am seeing, which is shocking to me, in the past 30 years, as I've been practicing holistic veterinary medicine, clients are coming to me with pets that are not fat at all. Like I just had a cat last week that came in, a big cat, a big female cat, hairy cat. And the first thing I said is, this cat is too thin. She says, no, my vet told me it's overweight. I put it on a diet. It was 14 pounds. Now it's 12 pounds. I said, it's skin and bones. Just feel the ribs. You shouldn't be able to do that. And this is happening so often that veterinarians are telling their owners that their pets are overweight when they're not. Now, there are some obese pets for sure, but nowhere near 61%. I would say maybe one in 150 or so, but I'm just not seeing it. So for me, they're just creating the same old playbook. Create a problem, put the fear in them, and come up with a solution. And in this case, it will be Ozempic for pets.
And they've started doing trials on these poor animals already for this Ozempic, and they're saying that it can stop kidney disease and all the things it's saying it stop. I feel like those are exactly the things that it's going to shut down.
Yes, exactly. They are saying that the whole purpose of doing this is to prevent disease. And they're saying the diseases that it will prevent are things like joint disease, heart disease, and diabetes. So let's go through this one by one. I mean, I've seen a bunch of overweight animals and they don't necessarily have these problems. I'm a homeopathic vet. I spend 2 hours per new client to figure out what causes these things. Let me go back to the beginning about how I became a holistic vet. Vaccines and drugs cause most of the problems in our companion animals, and vaccines cause autoimmune diseases. And one of the autoimmune diseases is that it attacks connective tissue, which breaks down the joints. So 30 odd years ago, my dog ruptured her cruciate, which was not very common back then. Now it's an epidemic of it. And at that time, I'd spoken to the head of immunology at Cornell Vet School, that said to me, in her case, it was the Lyme vaccine, that the Lyme vaccine can cause autoimmune joint disease. And he recommended when we do surgery to biopsy the joint. And in fact, it came back autoimmune mediated. So number one, the vaccines are causing most of these joint disease. The heart disease, what I'm seeing, unfortunately, and again, I don't necessarily want to see this, is that the rabies vaccine is the number one culprit for heart disease. So when people come to me, the animals are usually sick. I go through years of records trying to figure out what was the trigger for this problem. And what I do see is that after a rabies vaccine, oftentimes there's an early heart murmur, grade 1, grade 2. After subsequent rabies vaccines, you have higher murmurs and go into heart failure. And then with homeopathy, the proof is in the pudding. There are certain homeopathic remedies that can antidote the effects of certain things. And there's maybe a dozen homeopathic remedies that will antidote rabies vaccines. And when I use that, the heart disease gets better. Number 3, diabetes. I mean, I've seen a number of cats that have diabetes. I've treated them, and actually, they're notoriously reversible diabetes in cats. I've been able to get all but one cat off of insulin, so they don't even need the treatment. But the causes are oftentimes steroids. The vets use steroids for allergies, which is again caused by vaccines. It addresses certain other problems. Steroids are used for many things in our pets, allergies and whatever. The other thing that causes diabetes is stress. People will see when they bring their animal in for a blood test, the blood sugar will be very high. The vets know this, and stress ongoing will cause diabetes. So there's no need to use this Ozempic for anything, in my opinion. And it's going to talk about joint disease. One of the side effects of Ozempic when you lose weight, 20 to 40% of the weight that you lose is muscle mass, and doesn't come back it doesn't come back at all. So that's going to contribute to the joint disease that the animals will have, and they'll start falling apart. So I don't see anything beneficial to this except by making the vets and big pharma lots of money.
So that's really what this is all about. So they're going to tell lies to these owners of these animals, and they're going to say, this is going to make your dog and cat live longer. All that kind of pharmaceutical talk, and they're going to get kickbacks financially for it. Your animal is probably going to die. I mean, this is just a disaster.
And they won't blame it. I mean, what they're doing when they blame food is they're deflecting the cause. They don't want to take responsibility. They don't even want to really know. I mean, I think vets went into it for the right reason. And I think there's they don't want to understand that they're hurting these animals. So unconsciously, they're blaming the food on everything. And it's not the food. They're not looking at the animal, they're not looking at the notes, they're not looking at the repercussions of anything. But they're actually making the animal sick, and they're just deflecting it to food, and it's fat, and the animals are fat. So I want to go into a diet. The vets, are you going to trust a doctor that puts a fat cat on? This is exactly science diet. Reducing diet for cats. It's made out of, in this order, brewer's yeast, chicken byproduct meal, corn gluten meal, hydrolyzed chicken flavor, powdered cellulose, and soybean oil. This is what they're recommending for overweight animals. And if you have a few animals living in the house, they'll say, put everybody on. It's not going to make any difference. It'll be fine for every one of them. So this is what they're pushing for the big pharma and the big food.
So what do we feed our animals? I mean, I was telling you before I came on, I tried all that raw diet with my cat, and the cat got so aggressive, it freaked me out.
Well, actually, I mean, the best is the raw diet, but I usually tell people that food is last and least. I mean, it's a slow kill. But for example, we had a colony of cats. I'm writing another book. These colony of cats, we fed kit and caboodle, which is the worst food that you could possibly give. It's all multicolored garbage. The cats lived till 27 years old without any problems at all. And I say that is because they only had one. We gave them a rabies vaccine. We trapped and neutered them, gave them a rabies vaccine, and that's it. And all of them lived till 27 years old. So, I mean, the important thing is to stay away from vaccines, flea and tick products, pharmaceuticals, give them love. And you can have some leeway with food. My cats, they've never eaten the raw food. My dog eats raw food, which I think is the best. I try gourmet foods. My cats are honestly on a gourmet dry food diet. They got addicted and I can't get them off of it. But I assume they're going to live even longer than I am, unfortunately.
Well, and also be careful with your dry food, because there's better dry food than...
Yeah. Look at the ingredients. I mean, dry is not the best, but definitely mine is raw, but it's dehydrated raw. So it's better quality in the dry form.
So let's talk about mainstream veterinarians for a second, because as I was telling you again before we came on, I had an incident. My beautiful 34-year-old horse died last week, and we had to call the emergency vet out. And she said, he's going to have a heart attack. His heart's at 80. It should be at 30 or whatever. He was super sick. And then she asked me, just as he was dying, is he up to date on his vaccines? Like, she was almost getting her bag out ready to say, I don't know what. And then she's like, let's give him some steroids. The horse is dying. Why are they so brainwashed into giving as much big pharma products as they can as an animal's even dying?
So I've been reading books about propaganda recently, and it's very interesting. I mean, I think in vet schools and medical school, they throw so much useless information at you that you don't have time to think critically. I think that the people that go into medicine are not critical thinkers to begin with. And they just parrot back, like Dr. Hooker was talking about with the media. They just parrot back what they've taught, and they have a vested interest. Actually, Edward Bernays, who's considered the father of modern propaganda, whose uncle was Freud, and whose his relative is a CEO of Netflix. He said the propagandists are most liable to believe propaganda than the general population. So they are. It's hopeless. It's hopeless. And in terms of like the vaccines, I've been out of mainstream conventional veterinary medicine for 30 years now, but I have clients coming to me that their veterinarians are telling them to get the new mRNA vaccines for pets, that they're cleaner, safer vaccines. I mean, it's unbelievable. They have no foot in reality at all.
Yeah, no, it's actually extremely concerning. And sometimes they test on the animals, the dogs and the cats, with these vaccines before it comes to
Oh,
us.
I just sat through a webinar, which is incredible, called Moving the Needle, of addressing vaccine hesitancy in veterinary medicine. And they talk about the cross-pollination between veterinary medicine and human medicine. And that since people are losing trust in the MDs, we have a 90% trustworthy rate. And therefore, we have this opportunity to get more kids vaccinated, to teach, to get more propaganda basically to the human population. It's crazy. It's crazy. And in terms of the implants that they're doing with the Ozempic now, microchips came out with pets in 1990. And it's kind of, in my opinion, getting people used to the idea of chipping us. And so it is also with this Ozempic that using implants for medication to get people used to the idea we can put these implants in you. You don't have to worry about your glucose anymore. We'll just take care of it. It's frightening.
It is frightening. And I just want to talk about the vaccines one more time, because I was horrified to find out that the veterinarians do not know the ingredients of any vaccines that go into the animals. So this is really important, people. So we know what the ingredients of the MMR is, or whatever it is that we're putting into our children or ourselves. These vets do have no idea what's in that, and nor do we.
Well, I called 3 pharmaceutical companies to find out what's in these vaccines, and they all said that's proprietary information. They could not give it to me. So, I mean, I give them a little leeway there. They don't want to know, but they will not give out that information.
So we have no idea what's in a pet vaccine.
No.
I mean, that should concern everybody.
Yeah. Well, people trust, 90% trustworthy rate of people for their veterinarians. It's crazy. It's incredible. I mean, my biggest lesson is to teach is don't trust your vet. I mean, even if you like them as a person, they're just indoctrinated. They don't know the truth. They don't want to know the truth. They may have a good heart in other ways, but they don't have your pet's best interest in mind, unfortunately. I know you're going to need a vet, but be informed before you go to them.
And do we have any studies on vaccinated versus unvaccinated pets?
No, I mean, honestly, I've only seen a few unvaccinated. It's really hard when you adopt animals. They're usually vaccinated by the rescue group. When you buy, it's very hard to get a breeder. I just, in fact, have a client that drove down to Arkansas from Connecticut to buy 2 unvaccinated British short-haired cats. And she came back and the cats were sneezing and gave something to her other cats who got very sick. And when I investigated, she actually vaccinated these 2 cats for upper respiratory, which they then got sick from. So, it's very difficult to get unvaccinated animals. I have many people that call me asking if I know breeders or any way to get them. It's just very hard to find.
Marcie, do we have to vaccinate our animals? Is it the law?
Well, there's mandates for rabies in I think all the states, maybe Hawaii not. Most states now mandate you have to get the rabies every 3 years. I just found out New York is now enforcing vaccines in boarding and grooming facilities. They cannot go into a boarding or grooming facility unless they have this distemper, parvo, kennel cough shot twice a year, rabies. It's crazy. And these are not veterinarians. How dare they make these laws? And actually, this woman was on our side, but she was given a $450, what's it called? She was fined $450 for not having a dog that was up to date in its vaccines. So we're between a rock and a hard place here, trying to get freedom for our animals. Health freedom is just as important for animals as it is for people. I mean, they don't deserve it. They give us their unconditional love, and they don't deserve what we're doing to them.
No, it's barbaric. It's awful. I can't even bear to watch those pictures that Lou just put up. Now, Marcie, let's talk about your book for a second, because I love your book, Little Miracles. Talk about it and how people can get it.
Oh, you can get it on the CHD website. You can get it from my website. And yeah, it's my story about, I've always been a truth seeker, and I've always followed my heart, and I will never be compromised for anything. And I kind of take people along from my journey of wanting to become a vet through conventional medical school, veterinary medical school in Italy, feeling very uncomfortable with conventional medicine. And I was going to give it up because I saw we were doing more harm than good with these animals. And finally following my path, finding my path with conventional. with holistic medicine. I couldn't be happier today with what my path is. It's really connecting my heart and God, and with treating animals with love, healing them with love, which is what I wanted to do. You can see my poster in the back there that I talk about in my book. One day when I bought this before I graduated, and I wanted to live up to this poster of just being surrounded by grateful, loving animals, and so I am.
And animals really are. I mean, we have an autism center here, and the rescue horses, the dogs, the chickens, the ducks, all of them are such a
They're
big
just
part of their
pure
life.
love, pure love. I mean, people can be so disappointing, but their animals will never disappoint you. And we owe it to them to give them love and treat them well. And veterinarians, unfortunately, I don't know where they lost it, somewhere along the way.
Yeah, and then these girls, these veterinary horse equine here in Austin, they're lovely,
Yeah.
lovely human beings. As your horse is dying, they will hold you and love you and cry with you, but they're just pushing big
Well,
pharma.
the question is, how did I find this out? How come I know? So when people say they have a kind heart and they're good, but there's some kind of disconnect here, how can they not know? I mean, in my book, I talk about this. I told my bosses, I told my colleagues, they don't want to know. So somehow money is more important. I don't know. I mean, it's very sad. And unfortunately, there's a lot of holistic vets, be careful out there too, that talk out of both sides of their mouth. I mean, there are some really good integrity-driven people out there, but there's a lot of holistic vets that vaccinate and then treat them for the vaccine injury on the other side.
Well, Marcie, thank you so much for being on this morning. I love having you on. I love your knowledge and your love for animals. And people might say, well, this is not very children's health defense. Yes, it is, because if our pets die, it upsets our children and so on. So it's very important that we cover this, and it's horrific. Please do not give your dog Ozempic. It's going to have dire results, terrible results.
Thank you so much for having me on, Carly.
As always, thank you so much. And to everybody, we're going to go now to hospital protocols. We are starting this today, a whole slew of hospital protocol stories. As you know, we've recorded hundreds of these stories. This is to help Ron Johnson with his future hearing coming up. So please stand up and speak out, whether it's an injury to yourself, your child, your animal, whatever it may be. That's how we will win this, is if we stand up, speak out. We've got to be brave. We've got to be strong. We've got to pray big, stand firm, never settle. And I'll be back. Well, Michael Caine will be with you tomorrow morning. All right, yes, we are live. So can you tell everyone your name, please?
Yes, Brittany Gilchrist.
And this is a story about your grandmother.
Yes, it is.
And in the year of
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
And now, did your grandmother take the COVID-19 shot?
No, she did not.
Why did she not?
She didn't believe it. She doesn't believe in it. She questioned it, and we believe in our freedom and rights to deny or accept anything that goes into our body or on our body, to have those rights that are God-given and not forced upon us by man. So she was very avid in standing against that, making that choice.
So she clearly went into hospital.
Yes.
Did she have one of those oxygen pulse meters on her finger?
Yes, we actually had to call the ambulance because she was having difficulty breathing. My grandpa got sick at the same time. So, and I'm a registered nurse, so my mom and I moved kind of in to take care of him. We were doing all the things you're supposed to, but she around day 10 had some difficulty breathing, and I didn't have any oxygen available to give her, so I had to call 911 as she was having increased work of breathing. And the ambulance came actually halfway. I met them halfway, and they transported her down. I followed her. So in the ambulance, she received nasal cannula put on, so oxygen, and one breathing treatment, and they recorded her vitals.
And did she seem a bit better after that?
She did. By the time we got to the hospital, she had improved with one breathing treatment and a nasal cannula.
So why couldn't you take her home then?
So I thought that when they wheeled her in and I met her at the ambulance bay back by the ER, I never thought that was going to be the last day that I saw her. I thought that they would, take her and she would just need some support, some oxygen, maybe some fluids, and that she would be discharged. But that was the last day that I saw my grandma alive.
Were you able to communicate with her in any way or form with your phones or something?
In the first couple of days, she actually had to steal a phone. She stole a phone and hid it in her bed.
Whose phone did
One of the nurses' phones. Yeah, one of the hospital phones she stole.
How old is your grandmother?
78.
Okay, and so she
Yeah.
managed to communicate with you.
Yes, yes. And her conversations were always of like trying to tell us where the mailbox key was and certain bills. You know, she seemed really frantic about that. And I said, Grandma, just focus on getting better. You know, just breathe, just calm down and breathe. You know, you're going to be fine. And at that point, I really thought she was. I had no idea that she would, you know, she wouldn't be out in a couple days. I literally thought she was going to be out in a few days and just needed that oxygen. So,
Do you know if they gave her remdesivir?
we were adamant that she should not have it. Every doctor, every nurse, every healthcare professional that we had spoken to, we said no remdesivir, none. She doesn't need it. She's 10 days post anyway, even if they thought it worked, which we didn't even know at that time how horrible it really was. We knew enough not to give it, you know, and so we said no. And they didn't say anything back to us. They didn't agree or they didn't disagree. They just heard us, you know, they just placated us. And we actually found in her belongings afterwards that she had written out on a napkin herself, no remdesivir. And it wasn't until she, you know, passed in the hospital that I got her records, 3,400 pages of them, and I've gone through them about 8 times. It's taken me about 8 hours each time, and I found a progress note dated I think it was several days in that they had gave her remdesivir and baricitinib as well.
That's incredible. And what else did you discover from the hospital?
Horrible things. Pressure injuries that were just very horrible and needed wound care and additional nursing care just to treat. They never once mentioned those to us at all. Just an enormous amount of medications. They actually intubated her when her SATs were like 88, 89. Didn't warrant it, but they said her lungs needed to rest. But at that point, she had been so, you know, overly medicated that her respiratory drive, you know, she was exhausted, but because it was induced by them, not because of the progression of whatever the disease, you know, it wasn't that at all. It was what they had done to her. And so she wasn't able to breathe, they said, but her SATs, clinically, it wasn't indicated to intubate. So they intubated, and then from there on was just hell. The full protocol was unleashed. At that point, we didn't know any protocol was unleashed. We only were believing what was told to us, which was a fraction of the information. The day one when she was admitted, I was just in the ER, 6 hours. My uncle and I waited in the parking lot just to hear from anyone. 6 hours before we heard one word. And at that point, I had to fight and go all the way up to the house supervisor just to find out how she was doing on day one. And from there on, we never were allowed to see her. We didn't get to say goodbye. We didn't get to be part of her care.
So she was with no one when she passed?
No one. She was by herself.
And how did you hear that she'd gone?
We had fought. We had really fought to get in. We actually were there in person multiple times. We called. I made it my mission, you know, for a whole month straight. I called, and I was compassionate. I'm a nurse myself. You know, I know that they're working hard. I know that there are great people in the hospitals, you know, nurses and some physicians. But I called her at the appropriate time. I knew what to ask for, and I was talked down to. I was demeaned. I was hung up on. I was put on hold for 45 minutes to an hour at times. Like, they did not want me calling. They did not want to give information. There were maybe 1 or 2 nurses that were truly empathetic and compassionate and gave me, you know, the information, just updates on her care. I know that we fought tooth and nail for normal medications that should be somewhat readily available and accepted, you know, vitamin C and zinc and budesonide and albuterol, and we had to fight for those medications. Pharmacy wouldn't fill them. They told the doctor no and would not fill those prescriptions until he fought for us, and then they started them several days later. Everything was a fight. Things were denied. Nothing made sense at all. It was just absolute evil and chaos, and that was being outside of the hospital walls that I felt that.
Did they call you to tell you?
So yeah, when she passed, yes, the doctor refused us to see her, and then I got a call a day before she passed, and the doctor said, not even hello, how are you doing? He said, your grandma's dying, and I don't know if she'll be alive by 3 o'clock today. So we all drove down, you know, because we live up in the mountains, and this was here in the valley. So we drove down, and they still wouldn't let us in at all. And the chaplain came and spoke with us, as well as a doctor and one of the house supervisors, and they said, we'll discuss visitation when we round in the morning. I never got that call, and she passed that night. And when we called, because I checked in all the time, I called to check on her, which is so interesting. It was October 1st, so she had fought for 1 month exactly. And I called that night to check on her, and her nurse said, I don't know how to explain it, but she's improving. Her heart rate is a little bit better. Her SATs are a little bit better, which is just shocking because they said she's never going to improve. They were pushing palliative care from like the first weekend, comfort measures, palliative care after she was intubated. And I said, that's great, praise the Lord. We were just so excited. And 45 minutes later, I get a call from the doctor, your grandma's dying, you need to get down here. And I'm like, what happened? I just talked to the nurse, and he wouldn't give me any information. My aunt and uncle got dressed and hurried down as soon as they could, and by the time they got to the front door, I got a call from the nurse saying that he was sorry, but that she was gone.
I'm sorry. Let's just show everybody a picture of your grandma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my grandma and my grandpa. They were.
And how's he doing?
He is struggling. He misses her every single day, as we all do. He was sick at the same time, and so he was 90 at the time, so he was 12 years older than her. And I had to take him down too because I was really concerned about him. He needed fluids and oxygen as well. And he said, okay, I'll go, but you're not leaving me. I said, okay. His grandma was in the hospital at the same time. And so I took him down, and I took him to the ER. It was a different hospital altogether, and immediately they separated us to triage him, and I forced my way in and listened at the door. And they said, we're going to keep him. He needs to be admitted, but you can't stay. And I said, he has macular degeneration. He's hard of hearing. He needs an advocate, And she brought 3 additional male nurses to stand in front of me and just stared at me, trying to convince me, I don't know what they tried to convince me, but I said, I'm not leaving him, and they said, well, you can't stay. No one can stay. Even those that have mental disabilities, no one can have an advocate or no one can have a person stay with them. And I said, that's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense from an infection control measure. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so she said, I can hear him. He doesn't need anyone. So I said, what did you ask him? And she gave me some explanation, and I asked him, and it was completely wrong. And I said, there you have it. So she said, well, I'm sorry, you can't. And so I told my grandpa that they want you to stay, but I have to leave. And he looked at me and he said, well, let's go home. So I said, okay.
Wow.
So I said, okay. So I had to wheel out of that little triage room with them all standing right behind me. And then I was followed all the way out, saying that I was committing elder abuse, that it was absolutely horrible, that I would take him home, that he wanted to get better, and what a horrible person I was, yelling at me the entire time I was trying to wheel him
And who's
out.
yelling at you?
The nurse.
The nurse.
The nurse, yeah.
And what's the name of this hospital?
This one that my grandpa that we, ran from was Kaiser here in Fresno.
And what about the one that
St. Agnes.
was where your grandmother was?
Yes, St. Agnes. And the reason they took her there was because it was the hospital with the shortest line, so to speak. Yeah.
And so what's your message to people? Because you've come all this way, and thank you for that, to talk to us about what happened to your granny. What would you like people to know?
That everyone needs an advocate. That currently in the situation that we are in the way that our world is, and the hospital systems and organizations, is that you have to speak for yourself, you have to speak up, you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to do your homework. You have to be involved, and unfortunately we can't trust the system. There's incentives everywhere. The reason why they didn't do budesonide and albuterol is because they were doing a combo and getting kickbacks from that. It's just absolutely insane what's going on, and sometimes we want to bury our head, but we have got to open our eyes and open our ears. We have to speak up and speak out, because that's how we're going to save lives and hopefully change the trajectory of this system. This corruption is what it is. And I've been on every single side of the bedside. As a nurse, as a patient myself, I was in a rated unsurvivable car accident and know what it's like to be as a patient, and then a family member of a dying loved one. And you have to be involved, you have to ask questions, and if you are not in the medical field, you need someone that can come with you to be extra eyes and ears.
Well, we're really sorry about your granny.
Thank you so much.
We'll put her picture on the bus and we'll sign her name.
Thank you. She was a warrior. She was a warrior, and she would be here too, fighting if she could. So we are taking that mantle up, and we're taking our place and not stopping to speak truth. It's been an assignment that the Lord has given us, and we're going through with it, and we won't stop. We're not going to stop speaking the truth. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.